All right, so John, I guess the first question I want to ask you today is I'm speaking with Jon Wertheim, covers tennis for Sports Illustrated. Is obviously we've seen the other sports sort of coming back, making plans to come back. Tennis has not really come up with a model yet. Like, what is the big like sort of hold up with the tennis plans to return to action?
It's a great question. In some ways, tennis is really easy, right? Two guys on the opposite sides of the net. And it's easy to social distance, and you're not really handling, you're not making physical contact. But what's really hampering tennis is just how global and international it is. And everyone's getting on a plane, and everyone, we talk about the U.S. Open. If there are no doubles, and there's no juniors, and there's no mixed doubles, there's still 256 players coming from more than 100 countries with coaches and physios and trainers and parents. It's just a big international population. That's a lot different from 16 guys on the Clippers all descending on Orlando. It's the geographic sort of the global nature of tennis is usually such an asset is really a liability here.
Yeah, that makes some sense. And right now, we're in the period normally where the French Open would have been being played right now. Obviously, that has not happened. It got pushed back to September. U.S. Open, we're still waiting to hear. And at this point, does it sound like they're going to go ahead without fans?
I feel like we need to timestamp this
as of recording,
whatever today is. Yeah, as of recording, it's a go. And I don't know if the top players are going to be there. Fans are not going to be there. The big sort of mystery right now is what kind of support will it get from local and state governments. But as of now, it's on, and ESPN will be there, and it'll be televised, and there won't be the ticket revenue, and there won't be the suites and the hospitality, and it'll feel very different. There may not be Serena Williams and Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer either, but as we speak, there will be a 2020 U.S. Open, yeah.
Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier, and we're recording currently on Monday, June 8th, and I want to throw this out there, is that there's been reports today that Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic are not thrilled with the restrictions that have hinted they may not come if the event is done as it is. So would that be something you could think, a threat you take seriously, and how big a blow would it be some of these big stars opt out of this over these concerns?
Yeah, I think it's kind of going to be up to fans to figure out how much they want to weigh it. If you're ESPN, you obviously want the stars there. Someone's still got to win seven matches on the men's side, 7 matches on the women's side. There's still going to be a champion. Someone's still going to make a lot of money. But, especially now, I mean, it's been 4 years since someone outside the big three has won a major. So if this is just pick a name, if Dominic Thiem breaks through, but Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Roger Federer weren't even in the draw, I don't know how much heft that title will have. On the other hand, a win's a win, a major's a major, and 7 matches is 7 matches. So I think what we're seeing is that, the same way we have income inequality in society, we have it in tennis too. And Roger Federer and Djokovic and Nadal can say, you know what, thanks to no thanks, maybe I'll play Paris or even see you in 2021. If you are Dan Evans is a player, for example, who's been very vocal. I mean, if you're a guy ranked number 50, you'd play a tournament tomorrow. So different players have different priorities, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see. If will history remember this as a major if the stars don't play?
Yeah, that's very true. And speaking of majors, we talk about the French Open as well. They unilaterally moved back to September. At the time, they got a lot of grief from the other events about the whole situation here. So you think you'll have the same problems the U.S. has in terms of getting people to come?
I think a lot less, in part because Western Europe seems to be a little bit ahead of the U.S. I think also remember, Roger Federer is a 3-hour train ride from Paris. Rafa Nadal from Mallorca, he can get there in an hour and a half. The fact that so many top players are going to have to cross an ocean to get there, I also just think Western Europe and Paris in general are going to be less restrictive. I don't know if you saw the restrictions, apart from having only one player in the entourage, which again, if you're ranked number 50 and they say you can only bring one person, you shrug your shoulders and say no big deal. If you're Federer, Nadal, or Serena Williams, and you have a whole team, that's a team. It's almost said it's like it's like saying to Bruce Springsteen, you can play, but you can't bring, the drummer, the guitarist, and the saxophone player. I also think that in Paris, it does seem like the players are going to be able to have their normal routine, stay where they want to stay. They're going to be able to go out. And the restrictions in New York, it's got it like every single player in the draw has to stay at the same airport hotel. That's if you're Novak Djokovic and you're used to a certain level of luxury, and you come to New York and you have a suite and you're in Manhattan, and suddenly they say you're at the airport Ramada Inn and you can't leave, and every other player in the draw is going to be here with you. You may say thanks but no thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. And obviously, the economic impact on this sport is enormous because the top players, like you said, they're doing very well. They don't need to play. But, how big is the layoff having an effect on these lower-ranked players who need to play events to sort of just make a living?
Yeah, huge. And, I guess if there's any good news, it's that they're not traveling. They don't have the usual expenses. But you think about guys who are who you and I have heard of, who casual fans have heard of, they haven't made a dime in income since February. And this is not a career with a long shelf life. It's not like you can say, well, in 25 years you'll get a bonus and it'll all even out. A lot of players are really in distressed times right now. And, I think the other thing too is Roger Federer has, he lives well and he has a home gym and they all have an academy, and that's great. They've absolutely earned it. But there are other players, Petra Kvitova, we talked to on Tennis Channel today, she is staying in an apartment. Vasek Hospital doing push-ups and sit-ups in his apartment in Vancouver. So, I think that different players are experiencing this very differently. And, yeah, for a lot of players, if you said you can make $3 million by winning the U.S. Open, they don't care who else is in the draw. They're signing up for that right now.
Yeah, they are. And looking ahead, when do you think we're actually going to get a realistic return to tennis? Do you think it's going to be the U.S. swing with the Cincinnati U.S. Open kind of deal, maybe put them back to back? Do you think we get anything before August with tennis?
DC and some of these August events are still in the game. Again, by the end of the week, that may be different. I still have some guarded optimism, some suspicions about whether the Cincy U.S. Open back-to-back, play them all in one site in 3 weeks. I still have my suspicions whether we're going to be able to pull that off. I do think these events in Western Europe, we're talking about Madrid, we're talking about another clay court, lead-in, maybe Rome, and then the French Open. I think that's a much better event. I do think we'll have tennis before the end of the year. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how many fans are going to be there. I don't know how many stars are going to commit. But I would look to those events in September. Maybe it's more likely than the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I also do feel bad for the traditionalists who love Wimbledon. We not get Wimbledon this year because of the pandemic. It does feel like a big loss not having Wimbledon in the middle of all of this.
Yeah, Wimbledon has the benefit of pandemic insurance, so they very quickly said, we hate to do it, but we're not interested in playing with no fans. We're not interested in creative scenarios. Basically, see you in 2021. Everyone stay healthy. So Wimbledon has sort of avoided some of this drama. And, I think it's a good exercise for tennis. I think it's very healthy that people are thinking about how we can adapt and how we can be creative and how we can find solutions we never thought we were going to have to find. I'm all for that. But it is interesting that Wimbledon sort of said, thanks guys, see you in 2021, and moved on. And the other two events are really sort of, it's become the daily drama with no matches in the sport. The daily drama is becoming, will this happen or won't it?
Yeah, that's true. My last question for you is this. We sort of are in the midst of history pursuits in tennis right now. You have the chase for the GOAT race on the men's side, all Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic trying to go for the top spot. Serena trying to break Margaret Court's all-time slam record. What kind of impact do you think this lost year is going to sort of have on those pursuits?
It's a great question. I think you could look at it one of two ways. On the one hand, all of them have a finite number of opportunities, and we're just eliminating three of them, maybe three of them. So that's unfortunate. On the other hand, it gives these players the time to rest. Roger had knee surgery. We heard that the knee surgery rehab wasn't as good as everyone thought it might be. He can probably benefit from this time. I do think it's interesting that these players are all chasing history. You know, they're all bunched together in this pursuit of history, and yet the four of them, you talk about the big three plus Serena, have been very silent on coming back. You think if anybody wanted to play in the U.S. Open, it would be the guy with 20 slams and the guy behind him has 19 and the other guy has 17 and Serena wants every opportunity. I mean, it is interesting to me that the four players who in some ways need these events the most have been sort of loud in their silence that they don't seem to be playing right now. So it's, I don't know. If Federer and Nadal say, I'm not playing the U.S. Open, do you think Djokovic changes his mind and says, boy, I'll try and pick off an easy one if those two guys aren't in the draw? So it's going to be a lot of intrigue for what players' priorities are. I mean, the four players we talk about, they've got, whatever it is, half a dozen kids among them. All four of them are married. They have families. They don't need the money, but they also need every opportunity they get. So, yeah, I mean, Serena Williams, they all have a very important decision to make.
Yeah, they do. Jon, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people follow on social media and keep up with some of the stuff you're up to?
I'm mostly, Twitter's mostly my guilty pleasure. It's Jon_Wertheim.
All right, Jon, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Keep talking.